I scoured the internet and found what you had to say. And now, I shall expose you. Hello, beautiful people. I'm the Luschmaster. Welcome to my channel. Oh yeah, of course. Subscribe. This is everything you had to say about Stanley Hudson from The Office. Stanley is such a mood. Like, seriously, sometimes I'm a Kelly and sometimes I'm a Stanley. And that's okay. I can relate to Stanley the most. I swear, playing Stanley must have been fun. Imagine just playing a grumpy, moody character. I would love that. LOL. Stanley is my spirit animal. Hates being in an office. Check. Good at accounting. Check. Loves art. Check. Guys, this seems like a pattern. I think I'm gonna be Stanley. Everybody is being so nice. It's annoying. I think I'm the Stanley of my job. But you try not to lose your mind when the same person says hi to you for the third time in 2 minutes every day while standing behind you to see what you're up to because they're bored. Stanley is the real human version of Cleveland Brown. Not gonna lie, I relate to Stanley. I would feel the exact same way as him every day at the office. Everyone thinks they're Pam or Jim, but deep inside, we're all Stanley. Inside, we're all Stanley. I think the best part of the second scene is that when Kelly says, "Who's Ryan talking to?" Stanley looks over, but you can clearly see that he couldn't care less. Then he sees it's his 16-year-old daughter, and viewers can literally see the righteous fury being lit in his eyes. Stanley to Ryan is exactly how I want to confront every other guy who I think is trying to hit on all of my crushes, or who I think is being hit on by all my crushes. I thought Michael was my mentor, but I'm all for Stanley now. Stanley's toaster bit gets me every time. I think about this joke every time I make toast. The more I watch, the more I relate to Stanley Hudson. This is the first time I've seen Stanley and Kevin interact in the entire show. I feel like there weren't enough scenes with Kevin and Stanley. That compilation of Stanley angry moments was golden. I'd love to watch a series all over again, and with all the added deleted scenes. Kind of wish I had Peacock. You completely missed the part where Michael tries to use the defibrillator on Stanley when he was just sleeping. Man, I missed a chance to meet Leslie, at a minor league baseball game on the 7th. Bummer. Saw the caption and thought a Stanley spin-off was happening. You and me both. We needed a Michael and Stanley wholesome moment. Seeing Stanley joking with Michael was a shock to my system. I wish we all had some pretzel days in 2022. Ah yes, Michael and Stanley bonding over pretzels. The wholesome content I never knew I needed. I wish we got more friendly time between Michael and Stanley. I laughed and cried seeing Stanley and Michael happy for a moment together. Stanley and Michael is such an underrated duo. The writers should have given more humorous quips and comments for Stanley. They could have built his character into a more substantive and genial persona. There should have been another Pretzel Day episode. It is criminal that they removed Stanley saying, "That's what she said." They should really make a video of Michael spending time with Stanley. I see Stanley's point. He doesn't want 50% of black people in the office to be ex-cons. Fair point. Stanley yelling at Ryan the second time is better than the first time. Stanley bringing his pain from the office out onto Ryan. I have a shirt that says, "Boy, have you lost your mind?" with Stanley's face in the middle. It's one of my favorite shirts. Stanley is unleashing the power of the pyramid. Stan is doing what most dads aren't, protecting his daughter. I think Stanley enjoyed Scott's tots more than anyone else in the office. I wanted to see more Stanley. At least the writers were consistent with his mistress's name. I believe in Garden Party, in which Jim pranked Andy into announcing his guests as they entered and Dwight welcomed Stanley and his mistress Cynthia. I like Florida Stanley. Would you like a Stanley Hudson spin-off? I feel like I'm going to be Stanley in 40 years, but hey, looking forward to Pretzel Day. They should get Stanley a mug that says the Stanley Cup. Would love to see more Stanley and Michael moments. I want someone to love me the way Stanley loves Pretzel Day. Every human should be born with a self-destruct mechanism so that whenever Stanley sees you flirting with his daughter and comes after you, you can just die and avoid the utter horror. Stanley would definitely go on Ryan's list of people who wronged him in later seasons. Even Jesus would agree with Stanley's anger. Definitely. I'd rather have the second coming of Jesus today than have Stanley yell at me twice. I love Stanley, and if I were Ryan, I would marry his daughter when she turned 18. Stanley really kept that paper for 10 years at Scott's Tots. Take your favorite Stanley moment, write it down,
then shove it up your butt.
I honestly think it would have been better if Stanley and Phyllis were married the whole show. Sometimes I think Stanley is just the version of Neil deGrasse Tyson who got into paper instead of astrophysics. Just let the bro do his crosswords. Stanley's That's What She Said was worth waiting for. Michael and Stanley bonding was such a rarity. I wish they would have left that in the episode. It was truly short and sweet. If Pretzel Day was every day, Stanley and Michael would be best buddies. I bet in the women's bathroom Ryan goes into a stall and lock it, but Stanley stopped it and he made Ryan sit on the toilet and listen to him. Ryan's very lucky that Stanley wasn't young with his biceps, eating whatever he wants and fighting the power. Dwight executed a prank that would put most of Jim's to shame, and he did it completely by accident. Then Stanley had to come in and be a party pooper and get a heart attack. Stanley could write a book, How to Cheat and Get Caught. Step 1, forget you're on a documentary and cheat. Stanley should have become a writer or love guru or something similar after his retirement. Why couldn't the ending of Stanley be that he was a judge, judging everyone, or at least let him be on a jury? I would pay any amount of money to get Leslie David Baker, Rolf Fiennes and the Death Eater cast members from Harry Potter to shoot new scenes of Death Eater meetings with Stanley as one of the Death Eaters just doing his crossword puzzle and ignoring everything Voldemort is saying. When Voldemort tries to get his attention, Stanley throws some of his classic lines at him and tells him off, for example.
Did I stutter?
Stanley is actually my favorite character in The Office. Name someone sassier than Stanley. I'll wait. Michael is the obvious pick for the best character in the show, but my favorite is Stanley the Manly. No, Stanley is the GOAT. Stanley is a lovable character. Besides Michael, Stanley is my favorite character. His annoyance of everyone in the office and having to work with him is so funny. He's one sassy black man. Stanley is so effortlessly funny, that's why he is one of my favorite characters. Stanley is the type of person who would make you burst in laughter by just literally looking at him. With all these pretzels Stanley eats, he could still do the most number of push-ups than anyone in the office if he is allowed to leave early. Word. Stanley is my second favorite character after Michael Scott, LOL. Everything he says or does is funny. I wish he had more featured scenes. Stanley is awesome. Stanley's eyes are awesome. Stanley the Manly could tolerate Michael only on Pretzel Day. Stanley says what we're all thinking. Stanley is hilarious. Stanley is so funny, he is my favorite side character. Stanley is the strongest office character from his attitude and voice alone. Stanley's look of disgust while Kevin eats is the funniest thing. Phyllis and Stanley definitely smashed. Pretzel Day is the one day a year that Stanley and Michael aren't at odds. In my opinion, Stanley's That's What She Said scene is deleted because it was unscripted. Leslie delivered an unexpected That's What She Said joke and Steve Carell's laugh was genuine as he wasn't expecting it. So, this wouldn't have fit the Stanley and Michael characters and they had to cut it, but it was still a super funny scene. Stanley was ahead of his time with quiet quitting. So basically, the people who scare Ryan the most is Stanley and Jim. The most incredible thing is that Stanley totally improvised a scene. It was just written, Stanley yells at Ryan. I don't understand it. Why would Stanley's daughter be stalking Ryan and then Stanley taking his anger and frustration out on Ryan? I mean, from my point of view, I don't think Ryan did anything wrong at all. He was just minding his own business, and Stanley's daughter was trying to sabotage him and make him look like a scapegoat. The funniest fire drill scene made Stanley get a heart attack. The idea of fake Stanley is amazing because real Stanley would definitely be on board with it. The deleted scene suggests Michael only tells him he should take the day off because he's working too hard, but I really don't think Stanley would care if he was replaced for the day. A day off is a day off. The funniest part of it, though, is the idea that Michael feels that Stanley needs replacing. He could have just not been there and it wouldn't have made a difference. But in Michael's mind, the office needs a black guy. So there has to be a fake Stanley and he has to be black, albeit younger, thinner, and better looking. Stanley was the opposite of Michael. I hated Stanley a little more each season. By the end, he was such a terrible person pretending to be a decent person, and it filled me with fury he could look down on anyone. Stanley always thought he didn't really care, but he did. When he snapped at Michael and says he didn't respect him, Michael could have easily fired Stanley in a second. He thought he could sue this company and actually win. Stanley would have easily lost and wouldn't find a decent job like this. If he wanted to sue or do something years ago, he could have, but he didn't. He was lazy and didn't even do anything but just his crosswords. No job would allow him to do that or even more. Stanley actually cares more than he said. Just try to act like he didn't. I would have fired him and let him sue. He would have wasted thousands and ended up with no job but working in a Walmart or McDonald's trying to pay up lawyers. I was rewatching the earlier seasons and noticed something kind of interesting. In the branch closing episode of season 3, Stanley was heard saying that he couldn't be happier that the branch is closing because he would get his severance package, retire, and then travel. A severance package is usually only a few months of salary. It's not even enough money to significantly make or break retirement savings. This means that irrespective of the branch closing, Stanley must have had his retirement planned out, money saved, ducks in a row, or almost nearly there. Then in season 5, the stress relief episode, Stanley had a heart attack after Dwight caused a panic by simulating an office fire. After he recovered from his heart attack, he was seen coming back to work at Dunder Mifflin, and in an interview, he did claim that he feels like he was working in his own casket because he doesn't have enough saved to retire and is too old to find another job. The theory is, sometime between season 3 and 5, possibly early season 4, something happened to Stanley's retirement plan. He either realized that he doesn't have enough to retire after all, or he was forced to dip into it. This would explain the big change in Stanley between season 3 and 5, when he would become visibly irate with Michael, did I stutter, cheat on his wife, etc. What do you guys think? Background character development or writer oversight? It's been a while since I heard it, but I love that line. Boy, have you lost your mind, 'cause I'll help you find it. Everyone is being so nice to me, but why do I find it so annoying? Yay, someone I can relate to. I feel like I'm working in my own casket. Are you from another planet? Did I stutter was the best. They not only robbed us of Michael and Stanley bonding for once, but also probably the best that's what she said. I wake up every morning in a bed that's too small, drive my daughter to a school that's too expensive, and then I go to work to a job for which I get paid too little. But on pretzel day, well, I like pretzel day. Give us more pretzel days. Stanley made the "that's what she said" joke, lol. I still say, have you lost your mind? 'Cause I'll help you find it, because of the take your daughter to work day episode. Standing behind the door saying, "You can run, but you can't hide." Jesus can come through that door and he's not gonna help you. I'll be on your tail like a hot wind. Stanley rocks. If it doesn't work out, I block her. Stanley's the man. "Don't tell me how to do my business" is an A+ line delivered perfectly too. I got them a toaster. They called off the wedding and gave the toaster back to me. I tried to return the toaster to the store and they say they no longer sold that kind of toaster. So now my house has got 2 toasters. Oh gosh. Sometimes women say more in their pauses than they say in their words. Oh, it's okay. I did learn it on the streets. On the ghetto, in fact. I've been here 18 years and I've suffered through some weird thematic Christmases. A Honolulu Christmas, a Pulp Fiction Christmas, a Muslim Christmas, Moroccan Christmas, Morocca Christmas. I don't want it. Christmas is Christmas is Christmas is Christmas. I don't want no Kwanzaa wreath. I don't want no dreidel in my face. That's its own thing. And who's that black Santa for? I don't care. I know Santa ain't black. I could care less. I want Christmas. Just give me plain baby Jesus lying in a manger Christmas. Is Michael some sort of secret genius? Sometimes I say crazy things. Life is short, Jim. Drive fast and leave a sexy corpse. We don't have to get along. We just have to work together. What a legendary quote. I do not think that is funny. Set off the most epic jinx of all time. The rules are unflinchingly rigid. It's like I used to tell my wife, I do not apologize unless I think I'm wrong. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And I'll say the same thing to my current wife, and I'll say it to my next one too. Yes, I have a dream. And it's not some MLK dream for equality. I want to own a decommissioned lighthouse and I want to live at the top. And nobody knows I live there. And there's a button I can press and launch that lighthouse into space. Yes, I heard how much Michael makes. I still think he's way overpaid. Yeah, I got a game. It's called Work Hard So My Kids Can Go to College. I've never heard that song before. And once I heard it, I did not care for it. But that song means it's time to go home. Now, it's my favorite song. I'm Going to Die is one of my favorite Stanley moments. Stanley's resigned "I'm going to die" is so depressingly hilarious. Stanley's nonchalant expression while saying "I'm going to die" as if he's accepted his fate just bodies me. Stanley yelling at Ryan is probably one of my favorite moments. Stanley is one of the very best secondary characters. His laughter was deep and engrossing. My favorite angry moment was him yelling at Ryan, "Have you lost your mind and take your daughter to work day?" I love how Michael is treating Stanley like a stray animal in a new environment when he first returns to the office after his heart attack. Stanley and Phyllis's friendship is one of the best on the show. I never thought I'd see Stanley laughing with that person he least respects. I guess pretzels do unite people. It's surreal seeing Stanley hang out and genuinely enjoying himself with Michael of all people. Nothing is better than Stanley laughing. The only scene I remember Stanley laughing around Michael was Scott's Tots. Stanley is a totally different person on Pretzel Day. Pretzel Day, the only day that makes the man who only cares about crossword puzzles, the clock, and someone looking to the door for Jesus cared about something else. Stanley's only "that's what she said" joke at a perfect moment and it wasn't included. They should have kept it. Stanley following Ryan into the private women's restroom is hilarious. I just watched this yesterday. Stanley's yelling is always gold. Whenever Stanley and Kelly get involved, things get so intense and it's so funny. I'm crying. Ryan got the black out of Stanley. Stanley is straight up savage. Stanley tearing Michael a new one was beautiful. When he laughs after Michael roasts him by saying he crushes his wife during sex, I love that. I'm just now realizing Stanley has a mustache. Surprised Stanley wasn't all for the wheelchair. I still have some disliking of Stanley over how he treated Michael during the Did I Stutter episode. I can't help it. To be honest, Michael cares about Stanley and he constantly ignores Michael and his meetings. Dude, Stanley has a freaking hitting unit under his desk. The fact that I looked up Stanley Heart Attack The Office and this was uploaded literally 15 minutes ago is so ironic. I never cared for Stanley. He's just so freaking mean. It's always satisfying to seeing a person like Stanley have a sense of humor. Stanley and Michael laughing together is something I never thought I'd see. Y'all ever notice Stanley and Michael always dressed alike when they were in the office? Stanley's probably the only character in the whole world who can cheat on his wife multiple times and still be loved by the fans. Stanley is just a good example of a bad worker with a bad attitude. Why did y'all delete that scene? That Michael and Stanley bond was something I didn't think was in any other episode of the show. Could have easily placed that scene in a better point at the show instead of at the very end. But I digress. The only Michael and Stanley good moment, and you put that out. I bet Toby did this. Happy Stanley feels weird. Stanley was not happy. He really ran into the bathroom to hide, and Stanley followed him in. And it was the women's bathroom. Yo, angry Stanley is scary AF. Stanley is rude. He yelled at everyone. Angry Stanley is scary Stanley. Stanley always just seems tired. I always appreciated that Stanley disliked work so much. He found superhuman strength to duck out of there early. What is some of your most memorable moments of Stanley Hudson from The Office? Let me know in the comments and we'll meet again soon. Tralala!